how much does the United States owe to a variety of different groups, people who directly supported the occupation, those who served in the government or in the military or were translators. Beyond that, groups that received a at least greater level of protection over the past 2 decades, if never a perfect level of protection, that are now potentially going to be exposed to any amount of abuse from the Taliban. What do we actually owe to those people? Everyone seems to disagree. The right wing has been a little bit dismissive of those concerns over the past week, but here is Joe Biden talking about that.
Beyond Americans, what do we owe the Afghans who are left behind, particularly Afghan women who are facing the prospect of subjugation again?
As many as we can get out, we should. For example, I had a meeting today for a couple hours in the Situation Room just below here. There were Afghan women outside the gate. I told them, get them on the planes, get them out. Get them out. Get their families out if you can. But here's the deal, George. The idea that we're able to deal with the rights of women around the world by military force is not rational. Not rational. Look what's happened to the Uyghurs in Western China. Look what's happening in other parts of the world. Look what's happening in the Congo. I mean, there are a lot of places where women are being subjugated. The way to deal with that is not with a military invasion. The way to deal with that is putting economic, diplomatic, and international pressure on them to change their behavior.
Okay, so I largely see that as having 2 parts. One is immediately, what is our obligation and what should we do? And he said we should get those people out. The other is, I guess, describing some part of the, and I hate using this term again, but a Biden doctrine for military intervention for human rights concerns. Michael, what are some of your immediate thoughts in seeing him articulate that?
First of all, I think it's such a fascinating minute that we just watched because it is a good question, right? What do we owe these people? But then you're also seeing, and we can get to that in a second, but then you're also seeing a president who is he said we shouldn't have gone in there. The way to go in there is not with the military and sort of dictate that way. He's setting himself up for, you just referred to the Biden doctrine. I don't know that I would go that far, but he's creating an opportunity for the Biden administration to make their signature on Afghanistan and other human rights abusers around the country going forward rather than looking backward and having it be reliant upon what they have done. Or not what they have done, but what they are going to do. So it kind of is a pivot point from this, which is, I think, strategically a smart piece of advice he's taking from his advisors and I trust himself as well. Mm-hmm. Then going back to the answer, look, I think the obligation you have is enormous. You do as much as you can to help the people that were there, and then going forward diplomatically, even though you're dealing with an unreliable I guess counterpart in Afghanistan and the Taliban, mm-hmm. do as much as you can as an international community and as the United States to do what you can to get those people out who need to get out, who helped us and who mm-hmm. rely on us for protection.
Yeah. I obviously the second part of his answer about, you don't just invade every country that you have, a humanitarian concern with, I think is definitely true. It's also not what we've ever really done. Those concerns are often trotted out. I don't necessarily believe that they're actually things that are driving the military intervention, but they're often used. And yeah, I definitely don't agree that can actually work. I think that there are other ways to hopefully influence countries, ways that might be, easier, cheaper, and probably more likely to work, while understanding that it's incredibly difficult. Like, I know a lot of Americans are probably incredibly, they look at the Taliban and they just wonder why is this still a thing? Like, why is this way? Why is it so hard to get this basic level of respect for things like women having any rights whatsoever, or the LGBTQ community and that sort of thing? And it's totally true, but understand, I was looking up, there was a poll in 2018 in America. 1 in 5 Americans thought that interracial marriage was immoral. We got a lot of issues there. People who still don't want women to have really any substantive rights here in America. So it is a worldwide cultural concern, not equally distributed across all cultures, but you can't just invade every place that doesn't treat these groups right, or else you'd have to invade quite a few American states as well.
Yeah, of course, and that's what that's the signature that Biden's trying to put on this is going forward. I think it's smart politics, and even if I'm skeptical as to how efficiently it can be done, I think it's at this point laudable that that's the direction they want to go. But again, I need to see more.
Yeah. And I want to briefly mention, I know we're going to go on for a bit about this, but this is, I think, the most interesting and important and intriguing news today. His first question about, he gave the answer you would want. We got to get them out. We owe them. We got to get them out. Now, I would have follow-up questions of exactly which groups he meant there, because it was a broad statement, but he might mean just people with a documented history of working with the regime to benefit our occupation. But he spoke more broadly. He said, especially the women, we got to get them out. And I agree. So how many of them? How many is the Biden administration going to support getting out? And over what time period? Is it that we have a moral obligation to whichever women happen to be close to Kabul as it fell? Like if you were 3 days travel from the airport, do we not have an obligation to you? If you don't try to flee in the first week, do we not have an obligation to you? I would say that if there's some sort of moral imperative, it shouldn't be so weirdly bounded by space or time. And America certainly has the resources, it has the space, it has the ability and the bureaucracy to get far more people than the numbers will likely come out from the Biden administration. We saw earlier this year, Michael, the overall raising of the refugee cap. So it had been taken down to virtually nothing, effectively nothing under Trump. The Biden administration said they were gonna raise it up, and then they received some pushback and it was lowered. Then thankfully they received some pushback from progressives, so it was raised up back again, but not even to the level that Obama had it in the latter years of his presidency, which gives me a lot of concern about. He says we got to get them out, but do we have to get out 5,000, 10,000? What if there are 100,000 refugees that want to come in? Where is he actually going to come out when you have a full court press in the right-wing media demonizing effectively anyone coming into this country, especially from Afghanistan? How do you see that playing out?
And especially during a pandemic. I mean, that's one of the other things that we sort of forget here, is bringing in thousands of people into the country during COVID. How to process them, how to vaccinate them, where to put them, where to quarantine. There's so many issues. We see it with the southern border, and now we're going to see it in a different way with the Afghans who are going to be evacuated from their country. I do think that the president, and I don't think it necessarily was the space to do it in a one-on-one with George Stephanopoulos, where he was not going to go into great detail, nor does he even know the great detail yet, probably. But I do think that it's going to be incumbent on the president to define that, and the administration to define that. And if they don't, they're going to take a lot of heat for it, deservedly, for not defining what it is that what it is getting. What does refugee mean in Afghanistan? Who is it that can come out? You see the president talking about there are women standing at the fences, get them out. That's a little flip, right? I mean, there are going to be women standing at the fences maybe for decades, hopefully not there in Afghanistan, but going off of the past is any indicator, that's probably not going to get better quickly. So the United States has to define its role. It also has to define its role probably with the United Nations and with other allies in the region. But there's an opportunity here for the Biden administration to do that and do it well.
Yeah, I agree.